This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. I hope I'm doing well. Hope your week has been doing well. Has been well. It's been kind of crazy. I keep thinking that I missed a week, like last week, because I don't. I mean, I remember recording an episode, but I feel like that was so long ago. There's been just so much going on, and I mean, I feel like, I mean, it's a crazy situation where I feel like time is going fast, but it's also going by really, really slow. But yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that, but yeah, there's been a lot going on. I've been quite busy. There've just been a lot of projects on the work. I've been doing a lot. I have a this kind of like trailer RV thing that was basically just given to me, and I'm currently doing some renovations on it, and that's taken up a lot of my time. But it's really crazy, and it's really nice. Like I've looked at this for a while, and kind of had some ideas for how I would change it up or like do certain things with it if it were mine. And then my friend sold it to somebody else, and I wanted to speak to that guy about possibly buying it and like getting it. Well, I ended up speaking to my friend about it, and it turned out that he was saying that basically it wasn't going to work out. And I was like, okay, like I was actually really upset because I had, put some intention into like a lot of thought into it. And then, I thought it didn't work out. So I like got really bummed out and then had to like, get myself back together, and it was fine after that. But shortly after, like a few weeks later, then, like I get this offer to actually have it. So it was kind of the craziest turnaround of situations. But yeah, that's been kind of what's been going on in my world for the most part. I mean, like there's been a lot of other things too. Like I've just been kind of trying to keep myself busy, and I think that's kind of a crazy thing with just everything going on, is that like it's hard to just kind of like sit still and like not do certain projects, because like it kind of just keeps your mind busy and keeps you just kind of like active and doing things, which is really awesome. So with that in mind, like I realize that my mindset is always like just very scattered, during this time right now. And I'm not sure if that's for everyone, if people are like sitting more still than I am, but I definitely have my hands in a lot of different places right now, and I'm always up and about. I'm getting less and less sleep. It's very rewarding for everything that I'm getting done, but I'm also just extremely tired. I'm very proud of myself for like the things that I've been doing and accomplishing, but I am so tired again, and it's kind of like the toss up between that and continuing to do that and waking up early and starting my day and doing things. It's completely opposite of what I've done ever in my entire life, and it's also something that I've also asked for. It's like something that I've always imagined with myself being. I'm seeing myself slowly turn to that person that, like wakes up at 7 a.m., starts working out, and then, starts getting the day done, like whether it's, putting some time towards like a hobby or planning out a podcast or planning out certain things for renovating things, or, just things and ideas for just growth and expansion, and knowing that like I can do it and that I will do it. So it's all been very rewarding, but also very tiring. And definitely a lot of realizations, but I'm not going to go into that really too much right now because it's the beginning of this podcast, and I should probably start speaking about that. But again, because of that, I kind of am trying to keep in mind that maybe other people have a lot of other things going on. So I want this to be like something that is easy to listen to, convenient to listen to if you have a short amount of time. So I'm going to kind of make these episodes with just me a little bit shorter, just so that, that's just easier to listen to if you're in a rush, or if you're like trying to listen to something while you're doing some kind of project or something. But so I'm going to keep that in mind, try to keep these ones with just me a little bit shorter. And when I have guests on, obviously those are going to be longer, because a lot of times my guests are really great people, and I would not want to well, actually a lot of those conversations I do have to cut down a lot. Even if they're like hour long episodes, like I still cut down so much from those conversations, just because it's speaking to people. And I think when you speak and you connect to people, it's kind of hard to really cut that short, especially when you're like in a flow. So that's kind of what that's going to be. When I'm by myself, I'm going to try to keep it within like 30, 35 minutes. I mean, that's still kind of long anyway, but And then when I have a guest on, then I'll try to keep that within like 60 minutes, so like within an hour or so. But that's neither here nor there. But today we're going to be talking about expectations. But before we talk about expectations, I'm going to draw a topic out of this box for next week. And and I'm not sure if you listened to the last episode about the box episode where I speak about the topics that were going in the box, but I mentioned that I wouldn't forget to put the new topics in the box, and sure as shit, I forgot to put the topics, the new topics in the box. So some of those topics that I mentioned were going to be newly put into the box aren't actually in this box, so they won't be drawn right now. But next week, well, I mean, they'll be in there by next week. I promise to get that done. So there are still a few good ones in here, so I'm just gonna draw one. I got really close to the microphone, so that probably sounded crazy. Oh shit. So next week is going to be nice. See this one. This one was arts. Okay, so arts. It's gonna be. I put music slash cinema slash visual art. So we already did music. That's gonna be that one, and I think that there is one just on like movies and stuff. So I'm not sure why I put this back in the box like that, but art. So it's gonna be more like visual art, kind of like the artistic creativity that people make, like whether it's drawing or animating or sculpting, whatever it is. I think that's it's an amazing thing. Like I find that so fascinating, the things that people can create with their minds. And I think it just speaks to like how dynamic and amazing and beautiful our minds are, and the ability for it to create. So that art, I mean, seeing other people's art always inspires me to kind of delve into that more creative side. And even though I'm not really good as an artist, I love that time because it like opens up, like, I don't know, it opens up a different part of my mind. Like I feel like I'm working a different part of my mind. But it's really nice, it's relaxing. So art is going to be a good thing. And another thing cool with that is that I actually recently started getting into animating. That's one of the hobbies that I am starting to get into slowly but surely. Unfortunately, the tablet that I was using, I bricked it because I tried rooting the device, and of course, if you try to root the device, rooting the device basically allows you to have more access to it. You can like delete certain programs that were installed, like pre-installed on the device, that are like wasting space or taking up or slowing like the device down. So I tried rooting the device to make it go faster, and I didn't do anything else with it except root it. And I downloaded this program to start animating. I've been working on like a project. It was like maybe only like 17 hours that I put into it, and it wasn't like consecutive hours, but put some time into it, and it turned out that the device just wouldn't turn back on. It wouldn't charge, and I'm still kind of stuck in that situation. So I have a buddy that works on computers and is really knowledgeable with that kind of stuff. So I might just kind of hand that over to him and see if he can fix that for me. I mean, like the data is probably going to be completely gone because everything that I look at says that basically if you can unbrick a device, then you're kind of just completely hard wiping it, and everything's lost anyway. But it's still a great handheld device to kind of like do projects like that with. So anyway, the talk for next week is going to be arts. I'm going to take expectations off the wall, replace it with art, visual arts. If any of you are artists, share your work. I'd love to see any of that. Share any ideas or any specific things that you would like to hear covered in that topic. And you can send those ideas or thoughts or creative artworks of yours to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to any of the social media pages that I will plug in at the end of this episode. So today we are going to be talking about expectations, and this is a topic that I have mentioned many times, like throughout the course of this podcast, just about like this idea of expectations and how we hold them in so many different situations. And it's it's oftentimes the fact that when we hold expectations in a situation, we are holding a certain ideal, we're holding a certain image that we create in our head, and it's usually for something that's outside of us or some circumstance outside of us. And 9 times out of 10, we are going to be upset. We are going to come out of that situation very upset because it didn't go according to plan, or not. We may not be very upset out of the situation, but the expectations that we have can shadow or overshadow a situation and cause it to be something that's more devastating than it would have been if we didn't have expectation in it. So it's this is a huge topic that we, like, and a lot of times we try to keep ourselves from having expectations, but expectations work in such an insidious way, like the way that it starts to integrate within our lives, the way that we hold expectations in different situations. It's almost as if we can try not to have expectations for something, but somehow when something doesn't work out, that we're, like, we can walk into a situation saying, I'm going to, like, I haven't seen this person in so long, like, whatever happened is water under the bridge. I'm going to have a good time. I'm not going to be upset. And then you see this person, and then you're just filled with rage, or you're filled with whatever emotion or feeling that you had, and you're like, "Oh shit, I was wrong." But like, even when we try to hold expectations in those ways, there's still something deeper that's kind of like being held in that way. And I guess emotional connections are different than having expectations, but having expectations of yourself to be okay in that situation is where that expectation lies. Is like, can you really expect yourself to? And are you going to be down on yourself, where it's like, are you going to say, like, oh shit, I was wrong? And then you're going to, like, wallow in that misery for a few days, like for a few weeks, just like thinking about it constantly, like tormenting yourself because of this, high expectation you had of yourself to not have a very real feeling. Like, this is how expectations work, and they work in so many different ways. Whether it's expectations we have of others, expectations, you know, like I spoke about social obligations before, and that's more of the expectations for others. It's like these things that we do outside of us, and those are more things that we feel that we're supposed to do. But also, when we do those things that we feel like we're supposed to do, like giving to somebody or helping somebody out, a lot of times we do those actions because we expect those same things in return. And then we're upset because we're not getting those things in return. And see, that's where kind of that idea of expectation falls, like it comes into play, where that's not something that we're meant to hold on to, like that anger and upsetness. And the way that we see expectations, it's not to say, like, no expectations, don't have expectations ever. It's, like, learn from the things that you're having expectations in. So if you're doing something and expecting something in return because of that action, then that's an expectation, and know that before you do that action. So if you want to do something just because, like, it you're fine doing it and you expect nothing at all in return, then hey, go for it. But if you're doing something and expecting something from someone else to respond to, like, you're expecting them to respond in a certain way or give you what you gave them, then you may be upset at the end of that, because not a lot of times that's reciprocated. And I mean, a lot of times it is, but like, there are often times where it's not. Or oftentimes we hold expectations of what we want in return or how we want that in return, and the what and the how is what causes us to become upset when we don't get that. So these expectations of others are something that, like, we fall into so much because we connect with other people so much, and with that connection we start building expectations because you know we're we're connected with other people. So it's like that. It starts to become like as if we start intertwining our lives in certain ways, intertwining our feelings and emotions in different ways, and those are the things that start building those expectations. It's like, well, I wouldn't do that to you, or I wouldn't. It starts becoming like you're reflecting your own feelings on a situation that should be, but that person isn't you. That person doesn't have your feelings. That person doesn't have your thoughts. And although you share a common understanding in the way that your relationship is, you are not the same person. And that also needs to be understood. We have relationships with people, these partnerships with people. And something that can be so difficult is this idea of love. Like we grow connected to people, and especially in these romantic relationships that we have. And those make it even more difficult, where we share this very intimate connection with someone, and we start building expectations around that. And we can enter a relationship saying, you know what, I'm going to let you do you, and I'm going to be me, and we're going to, like, do our own things, but also come together in this really strong force. And if you can stay on that ground, then that's perfect. But, or I mean, if that's perfect, if you want that for yourself. Every relationship is different. Everyone wants something different in our relationship. So, but the point is that we start holding these expectations, and the worst part is when we leave these relationships, or we separate ourselves from these relationships that again hold very strong emotional ties with them, very strong feelings of, you told me this would last forever. You told me you would never leave me. These are all expectations. You told me you would, have my back through thick and thin, or whatever it is. These are expectations that we're having. It's like you hold those words. And of course, like, people say words, and like, this is going to sound so cruel, but people say words, and words are just words, but uh, actions are what's meaningful. It's like, how are people acting? And we have to look at the actions of other people and see if those actions are something that corresponds with what we want for ourselves, because the words are what's going to build expectations, and those are going to be false. They're going to be false expectations that we're building again for things outside of us and situations outside of us. And again, like, that may sound like a cynical, or like, like in some kind of way, but the point is that, like, we have to recognize that we have to deal with the repercussions of the expectations that we put forth. And if we put forth expectations in very deep ways, we're going to be the ones that's suffering the consequences of that. And that's just kind of what we have to constantly keep in mind. Someone else isn't going to feel for us. We can leave a relationship and both of us can be hurting, but we're not going to be feeling the same exact thing, and it's not going to be for the same amount of time. So you have to recognize that you're going to be the one that's left with your feelings. You're going to be the one that's left with your thoughts. You're going to be the one that's left with yourself. And I'm not saying that you're going to be alone, but just like, those times when you're like, I don't know how to express this into words. I don't know how to put these feelings into words. You don't have to put those feelings into words, because they're not necessarily for anyone else, but just know that you have to be with them, like, that they're going to be with you. So know that this is what happens in these situations of expectations, is that we're building ourselves up. We're putting this image in our head, and it's crumbling down if it doesn't happen the way that we expect it to. So that is something that we always have to keep in mind. And that's the biggest thing, like, these expectations that we have to of situations, like, not just people, but of situations where we are trying to build this image of something, or this idea of something, this expectation of something that we don't have control over, these things outside of us, where, like, we can put our influence on something, but at the end of the day, like, how the dice fall is how it happens. Like, that's just what happens. So we have no control over that. We can have control over, again, the intentions that we make, the steps that we make, the moves that we make, but the way that the world responds, the way that the things outside of us start responding, that's not something that we can hold on to. And this is kind of where the idea of having goals comes in, where it's like, we like, this idea of, like, not having expectations isn't saying that, like, don't have goals. Like, we can have goals, we can have intentions, we can have things that we're looking forward to, things that we want for ourselves, ideas that we can, like, manufacture in our minds, that we want to start creating in reality, and we can have those. But it's the expectation behind that, and it's the idea where, if you're working on your path to get to your goal, and you stumble, you come across some obstacle, you fall, you get back up. And that's the biggest thing, is like, the expectations are those falls. The expectations are those pitfalls, those things that are causing us to think, man, like, did I make the right decision? Is this the right call for me? Is this the right thing I should be doing, because this thing didn't work out that I tried, this method of getting towards my goal didn't work out the way that I tried. That's that's where the expectations start to get a hold of you. That's where the expectations start to manufacture this idea of, am I wrong for doing this, or did I it can cause us to relinquish the will to move towards our goals. And that's kind of where we have to relinquish the idea of expectations, of these ways, or these modalities of reaching these goals, because we can try a certain way of reaching a goal and hope that it works out, have intentions of it working out, but know that there's a possibility that it may not work out. And knowing that that is also a possibility, that lowers that expectation of it being the way that it's going to happen. So lower the expectation within any kind of outcome as you're going along your path. If your dream, if your passion is something that you hold strong to, then the path to get there is going to be a lot of different twists and turns, a lot of different ways of trying different things, but don't hold too much expectation in how it's going to turn out. Hold intention, hold faith in that it's going to work out in the way that you want, but if it turns out to not work out in the way that you want, try another way. Try a different route. Don't let that pitfall, that anger, that crumbling of this idea within your head cause you to lose hope in that dream itself, because that's what holds us back. That holds so many of us back in different avenues of our lives of trying to pursue the things that we are really passionate about. And it's so unfortunate that like this thing that we create within our own minds can be our own downfall. This is why we're our worst enemy many times, because of these times that we're putting ourselves down. And that goes again into this idea of these expectations that we have of ourselves. A lot of times we can be very tough on ourselves, more tough on ourselves than other people can be. And that's because sometimes we hold high expectations of our own selves. And again, this isn't saying to hold yourself in a different regard or to lower how you feel yourself to be, like, or who you feel yourself to be. Don't lower yourself. You can always have, again, ideas and ideals of who you want to be and how you want to be, and know that you are your best self. You always are your best self. But we make mistakes. We are humans. We make mistakes. We have downfalls. We have situations where, like, we do something that maybe goes against that idea of who we see ourselves to be. And when we hold such high expectations of ourselves, we fall back into this like pattern of, well, fuck it. Like, if I can't do this right, then I may not even try. I may as well not even try. And that is, again, like the worst place that we can get to, because we're giving up on ourselves. We're giving up on who we truly feel ourselves to be. And the longer we turn away from that, the longer we move away from that person or say, fuck it, like, I'm not going to even try, the more upset we're going to be. It's going to be very disappointing, because that knowledge of knowing that, I know I can do this, I know that I am so much more, that knowing is going to stay within you. It's always going to be there within you. And as subtle as it is, as many times you try to wash it away with whatever substances or with whatever distractions, it's going to be there, and it's going to keep eating away, because you're not feeding it, you're not going towards it. And a lot of that reason that we don't go towards it is because we're feeling as though, again, like we let ourselves down in some kind of way, that we aren't strong enough to do something. And you are strong enough. You can do that. And it's all about you believing in yourself and you knowing that you can do it. And again, relinquishing a lot of these expectations of, like, I need to do it right this first time. I need to know this information in order to be good at this. It's like, have flexibility in yourself. And this is something that is such a big idea. I got a text message from a friend the other day, and we were supposed to have a Zoom meeting, and she asked me if we can reschedule the Zoom meeting for another day. And I was like, yeah, totally. Like, what day? And like, we rescheduled it, and she was like, yeah, thanks for being so flexible. And oh shit, I actually haven't even responded to the text message, but like, that text message got me so, like, into like a thought where it's like, why would she be thanking me to be for being so flexible? And I realized that in some situations, a cancellation like that could be very upsetting if you're holding that expectation in it. If you're holding an expectation in such high regard, then and you get a cancel. Like, let's say that you're expecting to go out on a date, and like, you're waiting for the date, like you've been thinking about it all week, and then the day of the date, like, they call and they cancel. It can be very upsetting because you held such high expectations in that. And I've recognized that even in this situation, some people may have held high expectations in that. And the biggest thing about all this, and like, this was literally just like 2 or 3 days ago that I got this text message. It was actually like 2 days ago that I got this message, and um, it gave me this idea that where it just like combined all of these kind of topics of this idea of expectations together, where it's like this idea of flexibility. That's something so big where hold flexibility in your life, in the situations that you come across, in the people and the relationships that you build with people. Hold flexibility in yourself. Know that things change. Things are constantly changing. We're constantly learning and growing and gaining new understandings. And with that, we have to have flexibility because our expectations are also going to change. Our wants are going to change, and the outcome of things are going to always be different. We can't always expect them. So be flexible. Know that, like if something doesn't work out that way, then hey, I still have passion to my dream. I still have passion for wanting to achieve the things that I want. This downfall is not going to stop me. This pitfall is not going to stop me. I I expected something like this may happen. There was flexibility in that situation. I think if we expect the best, then we should also expect the worst. And I think when you expect the best and the worst, that's when you gain flexibility because that's not like removing expectations. Because again, like expectations seem to be so insidious, like within how they work within us. So recognize it and then counter it. Counter it with the worst possible situation. And sometimes even thinking about that worst possible situation, it'll bring up some emotions for you. But handle them in that situation. Like, like kind of work it out before it even happens. Don't magnify it into like and starting to only think about that negative thing, but just recognize that's a possibility. At the end of the day, you find yourself just like, okay, I'm gonna walk into this knowing that anything is possible, and with that understanding, whatever happens is gonna be awesome. I remember I used to I used to go into tests when I was in school, and I would take tests, and if I didn't feel too confident about it, I'm like, you know what? If I got a C on that, then I'd be so happy. Like that'd be perfect for me. Or if I didn't fail that test, then then like that's perfectly fine. And just like the idea of getting like a fail or like like a C or something. And I think I was thinking of a C more in graduate school when I had to have like A's and B's and I couldn't get anything less than that. But um yeah, I would be like, so expecting something lower that when I got something better, then it was like, oh, well, I'll take it, like it's really good. So a lot of times go into situations like that as well, where it's like, okay, I can do this, and these are the possibilities of this outcome. But it's like, is this something I want? Is this something that I feel I need to do for myself? And if the answer is yes, then I'm going to consider all the negative possibilities, but I'm also going to take that step knowing that. And if it doesn't involve my death or, immediate injury, then I think that's going to be a decision that I'm always going to take a step forward for. So, uh, again, that's just this idea of expectations. Have flexibility. Have compassion for yourself. I think that's the biggest thing because it all comes down to you, your reflection, your reaction to other people, to situations, to your own downfalls. These are all things that all fall back to you, and it's important for you to reflect on those. Important for you to understand that because the more you understand that, the more you understand yourself, and the more you understand yourself, the more clarity you have as you continue to walk forward. So keep that in mind. This idea of flexibility when you're going into situations, whether it's again starting a new business or starting a new relationship or starting some new venture within yourself that calls for some motivation to be pulled out of some ether of some place. So just have compassion with yourself, have flexibility, and know that as long as you want it, as long as you want to like you truly want it, you can have it and you will have it. But just keep that faith in yourself and hold flexibility in how you're going to achieve it and how things are going to happen. So that's that. I can't believe I actually did that in 30 minutes. So you can again send those ideas. The next topic is going to be art. I love artists. If you have any recommendations for Instagram pages or Twitter pages or anything like that, you can send those to me on those social media platforms. You can send me some emails of your artwork or some ideas for topics. So you can send those to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can go to the Facebook page and join that and send any of that stuff or thoughts about this topic. And that group is Everything Under the Sun with Ty. You can go to the Instagram page at everything.sunpodcast, or you can go to the Twitter page at everysunpodcast. Yeah, so that's that. Rate, review, subscribe, share with friends and family and anyone else that you think would want to listen. And that's all. So, yeah, love you all, and I will see you next time.